Madison, a town built on trust, community, and responsible governance. But what happens when that trust is broken?
Our team has uncovered what appears to be a serious issue. Finances moved in violation of the town charter and Board of Finance regulations. If true, this would not only break financial laws, but also betray the trust of every taxpayer in Madison. In this video, we will walk you through our process, step by step. We will examine public records, town budgets, and official statements to show exactly how we arrived at our conclusion. The people of Madison deserve accountability, transparency, and honesty. As we break down the details, we encourage you to stay informed, ask questions, and hold those in power accountable. The people of Madison deserve to know the truth. The facts speak for themselves. Now, it's time to listen.
From the Board of Selectmen meeting on August 6, 2024, this was item 4 on the agenda. Discuss and take action to approve a request from the Facilities Department to return an amount of $264,515 from the Jeffrey Elementary School boiler replacement project to the CNRE unallocated fund balance, pending Board of Finance approval. This was voted on and passed. This was item 5 on the agenda. Discuss and take action to approve a request from the Facilities Department for a special appropriation from the CNRE unallocated fund balance of $264,515 to DHHS HVAC rooftop project, pending Board of Finance approval. This was voted on and also passed.
This appears to be a routine transfer of funds between projects. The money was moved from a CIP account designated for replacing the boiler at Jeffrey School. However, since Jeffrey School will no longer be in use once the new school is completed, the funds were redirected to cover a shortfall in the high school HVAC replacement project, where bids came in higher than expected. What caught our attention was the amount. Recently, we amended the town charter, increasing the Board of Selectmen's approval limit to $250,000. Any transfer above this amount requires a town meeting and a public vote for approval. This regulation is clearly outlined in the town charter on page 27, section 10.6. We operate under a town meeting form of government, where residents serve as the legislative body and actively participate in decision-making, as outlined in the town charter. This system of checks and balances ensures transparency and accountability. In this case, it allows us to be aware of and involved in the decision to reallocate funds from a dedicated purpose. This way, if the boiler does need to be replaced in the future, we know exactly where the money went.
Section 10.6. Special Appropriations and Transfers of Appropriations. A. The Board of Finance, on request by the Board of Selectmen, may make special appropriations from an unassigned fund balance or from an approved designated fund. However, no town agency or department may receive over $250,000 in aggregate from special appropriations in any fiscal year without the approval of a town meeting.
The town charter also has regulations for moving or transferring money within the CIP program. This is in section 10.6, item C. It reads, "The Board of Finance, on request by the Board of Selectmen, may transfer within the capital improvement program unexpended balances from one approved project to another approved project in an amount not to exceed $50,000 in aggregate per project. A transfer in excess of $50,000 must be approved by town meeting." We contacted the town finance department and expressed our concerns. They explained that the $250,000 does not apply as all of the projects are contained within the same CNRE fund, also since Jeffrey money was not transferred to a new project. Our facilities department identified this project as not necessary, therefore requested the funds be returned to the CNRE master account per Board of Finance regulations. The BOF's regulations also provide us with the ability to use funds for unexpected expenditures that fall within the purpose of the fund with BOS and BOF approval. The agenda item you are referring to is doing just that for the high school HVAC project. To us, these regulations seemed to fit the transfer, but the Finance Department had stated there were Board of Finance regulations that applied in this case. So we needed to research the BOF regulations. In the Board of Finance regulations, we found this section.
There is a link shown that will take you to the regulations of the Board of Finance. On page 3, the section for the discontinuance of reserve and capital projects funds reads, "A reserve or capital project fund may be discontinued by vote of the Board of Finance. The Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, or the Director of Finance may also request that the Board of Finance discontinue a reserve or capital project fund. The Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, and the Director of Finance shall be notified of such proposed action at least 60 days prior to a scheduled vote. Funds remaining in discontinued reserve or capital project funds shall be transferred to the general fund of the town."
That was the section that applied to this transfer of funds. After a careful review of the Board of Finance regulations, we didn't find the regulations the Department of Finance was referring to or any other relevant regulations. This was a little confusing and a contradiction to the information they supplied, as they stated the Facilities Department deemed the project as no longer needed. That would have required the funds transferred into the town's general fund. If the funds were transferred into the general fund, a town meeting would be required to approve a special appropriation to transfer the money to the high school HVAC project. These regulations are in place to ensure the town is aware and has a say in the financial decisions, as well as providing transparency. This contradiction led us to research and better understand the CIP process. Here is what we learned. CIP stands for Capital Improvement Project. It's a system used to plan for new projects or scheduled maintenance in advance. Essentially, it's a budgeting and saving strategy designed to ensure funds are available when these projects are ready to move forward. A simple way to think about CIP is to compare it to envelope budgeting, something many of us have used at home. For example, you might take a few envelopes and label them with future expenses, like new roof, vacation, or car repairs, along with the estimated costs and timelines. If you know your car will need new tires next year and they'll cost $1,000, you can start setting aside $20 each week. By the end of the year, you'll have the money you need without scrambling for funds at the last minute. CIP works the same way, but on a larger scale, helping towns and organizations plan ahead and maintain financial stability. As things change along the way, you can adjust the system. For example, if you decide to buy a new car, you no longer need to buy new tires for the old one. You can take the money you saved in that envelope and put it toward other needs or deposit it into the bank. That's essentially what happened with the Jeffrey School boiler project. It seemed pretty simple and straightforward. However, as we were trying to follow the process, we came across some more troubling issues. Now that we have a better understanding of the CIP process, it's easier to see what transpired. Let's take a look at the 2021 CIP book. This page shows the 10-year outlook for projects at the high school that were approved for that year. You can see the list of projects, their anticipated costs, and the proposed funding schedule. If we zoom in a little, we can focus on the HVAC renovation project. It was originally scheduled to be funded over 2 years, this year and next year. However, the timeline had to be moved up because the system started to fail sooner than expected. Now, let's turn to the CIP page for Jeffrey School, which outlines all the planned maintenance needs for that building. If we zoom in on the boiler and HVAC updates, we see those projects as well. Each project is assigned an account number to track both the project and its funding. This particular project was assigned JS104. The funding was scheduled to start the following year, with full funding planned for 2022 and 2023, when the actual work was supposed to be completed. When we were trying to track down what turned out to be JS104, the account for the Jeffrey School boiler replacement, we had to go back several years to find it. In the CIP book, on page 117, there's an explanation that provides important context. At that time, the Board of Education was working toward a 4-school plan. This plan included a proposed $89 million project, which involved building a new school to replace both Jeffrey School and Ryerson School, as well as making upgrades to Polson and Brown schools. There's also a keynote included in the CIP book. In addition to this recommendation, a 10-year maintenance plan will be proposed. Should this plan not be approved at referendum, the Board of Education's original 10-year maintenance plan will have to be reconsidered. This is included as an attachment for reference. At the time the CIP was being planned, the referendum had not yet taken place. To account for both possible outcomes, they submitted 2 plans. One if the referendum passed, one if it didn't. If voters rejected the 4-school plan, the original 10-year maintenance plan, which focused on maintaining all the existing schools, would have been enacted. But when the 4-school plan passed, the CIP for that scenario was put in place. As a result, the maintenance plans for Jeffrey and Ryerson schools were removed from the capital budget and shifted to a pay-as-you-go maintenance program. Under this approach, only essential repairs would be performed to keep the schools operational until the new school was completed. This raises some serious questions. Did Account JS 104 ever get funded? We went through the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance meeting minutes, going all the way back to before the referendum, and we couldn't find any record of the account being funded, nor did we see any other transfers out of JS 104. According to the approved CIP budget, if JS 104 had been funded, it would have received its first installment of $384,140. When they transferred $264,515 from JS 104, if the account had been funded with the $384,140, that transfer should have left a balance of $119,625. Why wasn't the entire amount transferred? Does JS 104 still have nearly $120,000 sitting in it? It's also worth noting that JS 104 hasn't appeared in any CIP book since before the referendum. So where does it stand now? We think we have an idea of what may have transpired. During our research, we read through hundreds of pages of meeting minutes and watched countless hours of meetings on YouTube. One thing became clear: there is a constant struggle over finances. This first video clip is from a Board of Education Special Facilities Committee meeting, held on August 30th, 2022. Keep in mind, this was 6 months after the town voted to approve the $89 million 4-school plan. Despite that, the committee was still struggling to meet the town leadership's CIP budget guidelines. We strongly recommend that everyone watch this video, or at least the first 15 minutes, to gain better insight into their process and the challenges they face. Here is a link to the video. This short clip highlights their thought process regarding how to fund the high school's air conditioning needs. It gives a candid look at the tough financial decisions being made behind the scenes.
We have to at least recommend that we take that one, big project and see if we can do it out of a special appropriation and replace those Daniel Hand roof units.
We wanted to add a little more context to what was happening with this video. This particular clip is from a presentation held before the referendum in response to a question about the maintenance costs for the schools not covered under the upcoming $89 million referendum. What stood out to us was the response. The statement made in this clip always struck us as strange, especially considering that it's the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education's responsibility to maintain the district's facilities. It raises important questions about how maintenance priorities are set and how ongoing upkeep is managed when significant funds are allocated elsewhere.
Because we failed to make decisions before. We failed to invest in our community. And that's why there's another $50 million coming possibly on the schools as well, because we didn't spend the appropriate amount of money to maintain and update our facilities. So now we're going to have to make some more difficult decisions.
This next meeting clip further illustrates the Board of Education's desire for the town to carry the HVAC costs under the town's budget, rather than their own. What's even more concerning is that this clip also brings to light actions and decisions that raise more very serious concerns.
The other thing that kind of is glaringly obvious, and I hate to point it out because I don't want to look like we've already paid taxes well in excess of the amount we have to carry to keep our AAA bond rating. And, we've built up an artificially large savings at the expense of facilities and through pushing off some facilities work over years. And so to some extent, you're just hiding a facility liability when you're, saving up all that money and you have this kind of a facilities scenario to address, and this hefty amount of money to need to spend to upkeep our facilities. So, I know it may not be popular, but I think someone has to say at some point, maybe we need to challenge the town leadership to look at more than just replacing the high school roof units.
There are a number of concerning statements made in this short clip, but let's start with one of the most serious. The suggestion that the town may have deferred maintenance in order to artificially inflate the town's savings account, known as the undesignated fund balance. If this was done to maintain the town's AAA bond rating, it could be considered an attempt to manipulate our federal bonding rate, which would be a serious crime. And if multiple people were involved in making that decision, it could also constitute conspiracy. Even more troubling, if the intent was to mislead the public about the town's financial position in order to justify taking on over $100 million in debt, it would represent the largest violation of public trust in Madison's nearly 200-year history. This casts doubt on the legitimacy of any financial information we've received to date, which brings us back to the initial transfer that first set us on this path. We believe the town rejected the Board of Education's initial request to have the HVAC project funded via a special appropriation from the town. Later, when the project bids came in over budget, the Board of Education went back to the town to ask for more money to cover the shortfall. According to the town charter, a special appropriation of that amount would require a town meeting and voter approval. That process could potentially raise questions about past projects that required special appropriations, as well as other projects that went over budget. Shining a light on those financial issues could jeopardize new projects or the ability to secure additional funding for existing ones. At this point, we started to question whether the town might have conspired to mislead the public by creating a CIP transfer scenario to avoid holding a public town meeting, hoping it would fly under the radar. At first, this seemed like a viable theory, but it also felt like a far-fetched conspiracy. However, after going back through all the information we collected, we re-watched the Board of Finance special meeting on August 7, 2024, where they approved the transfer of funds. Viewing that meeting again, it took on a new light. Take a look for yourself and see if anything seems off to you.
We also need to discuss and take action to approve a request from the Facilities Department to return the amount of $264,515 from the Jeffrey Elementary School boiler replacement project to the CNRE unallocated fund balance pending Board of Selectmen approval. Could I get that in the form of a motion? Anybody? Motion made by Katie, second. Jean. Discussion. I think this speaks for itself. And any comments or questions there?
I'm so happy not to talk about that boiler anymore.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention. That motion carries.
Did you catch the moment when a joke was made about being so happy not to have to hear about the boiler again? That's a very odd comment to make about what should be a routine fund transfer. Why would there be so much discussion, and clearly some relief, over a boiler project that had been dormant for years and officially deemed unnecessary? It raises a lot of questions about what was really going on behind the scenes. And did you notice the reaction from a few people? There was this nervous laugh, almost like an, "I can't believe she said that" moment. It definitely didn't feel like a casual or lighthearted exchange. Let's watch it again. And this time, pay close attention to Peter Anderson and John Picard's reactions. There's something in their body language and expressions that seems to suggest more than what's being said out loud.
Motion made by Katie, second. Jean. Discussion. I think this speaks for itself. And any comments or questions there?
I'm
Seeing
so
none,
happy not to talk about that boiler anymore.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? That motion carries.
Unfortunately, based on all the research we have done and the information we've compiled to present to you, it is difficult not to believe that town officials have conspired to mislead residents regarding certain financial transactions in Madison. To be clear, we do not believe this was done for any personal financial gain. Rather, it appears these actions were taken to advance projects and spending that might not have been approved by the public if residents had been presented with all the relevant information. Politics are politics, but when a lack of transparency crosses the line into potential violations of the town charter, as well as state and federal laws, it becomes imperative to bring these issues into the light. We believe it's time to engage the proper authorities to conduct a thorough investigation and a full audit of these transactions. In our effort to be thorough, we have examined the town's financial statements and reviewed the required annual audits. However, these audits typically do not drill down far enough to uncover actions like those we're describing. The audits focus primarily on whether funds are accounted for, not how they are internally moved, or whether decisions, such as deferring maintenance, are being made to present a misleading financial impression. Because of this, we are requesting that the town join us in seeking answers to these concerns. Transparency and accountability are critical, and the residents of Madison deserve to have complete confidence in how their tax dollars are being managed.